Hello and welcome to the subject of morphology. What is a word? Because morphology is all about grammar of words. So let's discuss about it. A word is a set of characters representing an idea. Definition number 2. A word may refer to a name, title, idea, or a message that we convey in our day-to-day life. Let's understand the first one. What is a word? A word is a set of characters, a set of letters. And when you combine a set of letters, it represents into an idea. It communicates an idea. It expresses an idea. This is basically the characteristic of a word. Go to the next definition. A word may refer to a name. A word may be referred to as a name. You can call anybody by any name. That may be a word. It may be a title. It may be idea or a message, and that we normally communicate in our day-to-day life. So this also qualifies to be in the characteristics of a word. We move on to the next. A well-known linguist, Bloomfield, has defined words as a minimum free form. Here we have two words, minimum, free. Minimum means that to the lowest point. You cannot further divide. That is the last point of division. Minimum point of division. So a word has a minimum, and then you have free form. Free means that cannot be attached to any other word. It's free. So a word is a minimum free form, means that a word in itself is independent, cannot be further divided, and it has not to be attached with any other word, any other morpheme, and so on. So this definition is really quite comprehensive about a word. We move on to the next. A word is a linguistic unit. It is larger than a morpheme, but smaller than a phrase. So a word is a larger than a morpheme. Morpheme helps in making up of words that we can talk about later. What is morpheme? When we move on to the next, second and third lecture. But smaller than a phrase, and of course a word is smaller than a phrase. Types of words. We have basically 4 types of words. The first one is orthographic word. Second is phonological word. Third is lexical item or lexeme. And the fourth is grammatical word. We move on to the next. The first type of word is orthographic word. An orthographic word is something written with white spaces at both ends, but no white space in the middle. Point number 2, an orthographic word is of minimal linguistic interest. 3, it is being represented in written form by small letters. Look here, an orthographic word is something written with white spaces at both ends. At white spaces at both ends, it means that when we write a word, the left side of the word and the right side of the word, there is a space, and that space is normally white because normally we write words on the paper. That is why white spaces at both ends. Like you can see, look here, there is a word an, but before there is nothing written, and after there is nothing written. I mean to say that you have immediately after this word an, you have a space here, you have a space here. Well, this is not white, this is a different color, but the meaning is like that. And no white space in the middle, and in between the word there is no space. This is known as orthographic word. Second point defines that an orthographic word is of minimal linguistic interest, means this is a minimum organization of a linguistic unit, like word, W-O-R-D. This is something that cannot be further divided. That is why we call it minimal linguistic interest, and it is being represented in written form, and this orthographic word is normally represented in written form. Like all these words that you see on the screen, they belong to the category of orthographic word. Okay, we move on to the next. Examples of orthographic word. All these, whatever is written on this page could be examples of orthographic word. But further, we would like to give you some examples like read, write, play, eat, go, come, etc. If you write a sentence, it could be like this: she reads a book, he writes a letter, they play football. So we don't have any space in between the word, and they are written in small letters and they are written on paper. So these are the ways in which we can express the characteristics of orthographic word. We move on to the next, that is point number 2, phonological word. The first is orthographic word and the second is phonological word. The word phonological, it belongs to phonology, that is to say it is all about sound and system of language. So let's talk about it. It is something that is pronounced as a single unit. Orthographic word is of minimal linguistic unit, but this is pronounced as a single unit. Pronounced means spoken as a single unit. We represent it by writing it in phonetic transcription. And for example, the phonetic transcription of, like we have here, read, R-E-A-D, this is the example of orthographic word. But the phonological example of read in phonetic transcription is read. This ra, e, and da, these letters or these symbols we can call phonetic transcription. Likewise, we have, this is the orthographic word, but the sound of this word is lead. This is orthographic word read, but the sound of this word is read. So all these words, they belong to phonological word. They belong to the category of phonological word. And all these like read, lead, and read again, we have, they belong to orthographic word. So the first one is orthographic word, and the second one is phonological word. We move on to the next, lexical item or lexeme. It is a dictionary word, an item which you would expect to find having its own into in a dictionary. Normally this kind of word, lexical item or lexeme, normally this kind of word you find in a dictionary. What happens when you search a word? When you search a word, in a dictionary, you find such words like book, play, go, come. So like these words separately written can be categorized into lexical item. Like for example, we have noun, we have pronoun, we have verb like play, we have book, we have man, we have men, like this. A lexical item or lexeme is viewed in relation to its meaning. So the word is expressed in terms of meaning in relation to things, actions, states, etc. in the world. So lexical item is always defined in relation to its meaning. We move on to the next, lexical item or lexeme. Accordingly, some more information about the third point. Accordingly, lexemes fall into grammatical categories like noun, verb, adjective, adverb, etc. Each lexeme may be realized by a set of forms. A noun may have singular, plural, and possessive forms. For example, boy, singular, boys, plural, and boys, possessive forms. An adjective may have positive, comparative, and superlative forms, such as nice, nicer, nicest. A verb, present, past, and participle forms, and so on. So like such forms of verbs, they may belong to the lexical item. Lexical item is then a collection of words being defined in the form of its categories they belong to. That is what we call lexical item. We move on to the next, that is point number 4, grammatical word. Grammatical words are words that occur in grammatical context. The grammatical word represents the grammatical properties of the word, the properties which determine how it is to be used in a sentence. Look, lexical item, separate category of grammar of words. Separate category of words to be defined in terms of its grammatical element, like noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, and so on. You can say parts of a speech. But grammatical word, how lexical item, how lexical word, how lexeme is to be used in the context of sentence, in the context of grammar. That is called the grammatical word. We move on to the next. Look, examples of grammatical word. The forms eat, eats, ate, eaten, eating have certain different properties which determine their use in a sentence. Like we eat food, he eats an orange, They ate fruits. She has eaten cake. I'm eating now. Look here, eat, eats, ate, has eaten, I'm eating. Now they are the what is the one? The what is the same, but they are used in different ways depending upon the type of sentence you want to use. So these are the examples of grammatical word. So the first one is orthographic word, that is separately written a word in general. Then the second one is phonological word, the sound of the word. The third is lexical item or lexeme, a word being represented according to its grammatical element. And the fourth is grammatical word, the word which is to be used in the context of grammar. So these are the types of words, and this topic belongs to the subject of morphology. That's all. What is morphology? Morphology, the term morphology has been taken over from the field of biology. Second point is it refers to the study of the forms of plants and animals. We have some more points regarding morphology. Morphology was first used for linguistic purpose in 1859 by the German linguist August Schleicher Salmon 2000. We have the next. It refers to the study of the form of words. We have some more points regarding morphology. In present-day linguistics, the term morphology refers to the study of the internal structure of words. We have still to continue morphology. The word morphology is derived from a Greek word morph, which means form, shape. So we can say that the study of how words are formed in a language is known as morphology. Thus, morphology refers to describe that type of investigation which analyzes all the basic elements of the structure of words. What is morpheme? It's a minimal unit of meaning or grammatical function. The second point is, in other words, it's the smallest meaningful unit in the grammar of a language. We move on to the next. What is morpheme? And we have the next point. A morpheme is what makes up words. The next point we have, some single morphemes are words while other words have two or more morphemes within them. Now we move on to the next. What is morpheme? We continue the discussion. And sometimes a morpheme functions as a word. For example, play, it's a morpheme. It functions as a word. Go, it's a morpheme. It functions as a word. Likewise, book, move, and so on. What is morpheme? We continue the discussion. Sometimes words have two or more morphemes within them. For example, talk, it's one morpheme. S, another morpheme. Together we make the word talks. So here we say that sometimes words have two or more morphemes. Here we have two morphemes, talk and S, talks. Likewise, we have talk, again a separate morpheme, ER, another morpheme, and we have the word talker. And then we have talk, ED, and the word we have talked. Unkind, another morpheme, and ly, unkindly. So unkindly has three morphemes, unkind and ly. So what we come to know is that sometimes words have two. In such words like talks, talker, talked, we have two morphemes or more morphemes within them. Here we have more than two. Okay, now we move on to the next. What is morpheme? We continue our discussion. Many words have two or more syllables but only one morpheme. More syllables but one morpheme. For example, banana, it has more than one syllable but it is one morpheme. We cannot further divide banana into two parts. Apple, it has more than two syllables but it's a single morpheme. Likewise, elephant, many syllables but one morpheme. Papaya, many syllables but one morpheme. So what we come to know is that some words, many words have two or more syllables but only one morpheme. We move on to the next. What is morpheme? We continue our discussion. On the other hand, many words have two morphemes but only one syllable. Two morphemes but one syllable. For example, look at cat, s, cats. What do we say? Many words have two morphemes but one syllable. Cats have two morphemes, cat and s, but it's a one syllable, cats. We speak it at one go. Likewise, we have run, s, another morpheme, two morphemes but one syllable, runs. Bark, ed, two morphemes but one syllable, barked. Pen, one morpheme, another morpheme, s, pens, one syllable. So we have the words having two morphemes but only one syllable. And we have more. What is morpheme? Thus what we come to know is that thus a morpheme does not necessarily have to be a word. For example, the word cats has two morphemes. Cat is a morpheme and s is also a morpheme. Types of morphemes. They are divided into two parts. The first one is free morpheme. The second one is bound morpheme. Let's talk about definition of free morpheme. A morpheme that can stand alone as a word without another morpheme. It does not need anything attached to it to make a word. Examples of free morpheme: cat, run, book, talk, ball, go, read, word, pen, speak, write. Look, free morpheme, we does not add any other letter or morpheme to the free morpheme. So cat, we don't add anything else. Run, we don't add any other letter, any other morpheme to it. That's why we call it free morpheme. Move on to the next. We have definition of bound morpheme. A morpheme that cannot normally stand alone, but which is typically attached to another form. Examples of bound morpheme like cats, runs, books, talked, rewrite, going, speaks, writes, stylist, etc. What we notice is that here we have two morphemes, cat and s. Cat is a free morpheme and s is a bound morpheme because it is attached to the free morpheme. So bound morpheme is typically attached, and the examples of bound morpheme like s in cats, runs, s here also, books here, ed in talked, rewrite, re in rewrite, ing in going, s in speaks, s in writes, ist in stylist. So all these like s, ed, re, ing and ist, they are known as bound morpheme because they are attached to free morpheme. Types of free morphemes. There are two types of free morphemes. The first one is lexical morphemes and the second one is functional morphemes. Lexical morphemes, they carry the content of messages we convey. They are generally nouns, adjectives and verbs. For example, boy, beautiful, write, book, nice, play, etc. In brief, what I mean to say is that lexical morphemes, they always carry the meaning. Move on to the next. Functional morphemes. They consist of functional words in the language such as conjunctions, prepositions, articles and pronouns. For example, he, but, to, from, the. In brief, what we have to know is that functional morphemes, they work as functional words. They are not filled with meanings, they are not pregnant with meanings, and they always help, or their meaning is expressed in connection with the other words. That is why we call them functional morphemes. Types of bound morphemes. Derivational morphemes, inflectional morphemes. Derivational morphemes, they are combined with a root word or main word known as a stem. They change either the semantic meaning of a word or change part of a speech of the affected word. Example 1. In the word happiness, the addition of the bound morpheme ness to the root happy changes the word from an adjective happy to a noun happiness. So we can say that ness is a bound morpheme. Example 2. In the word unkind, un functions as a derivational morpheme, for it inverts the meaning of the word formed by the root kind. We have some more examples. Goodness, ness is derivational morpheme. Careful, for is derivational morpheme. Badly, li is derivational morpheme. Example 3. Incomplete, in is derivational morpheme. Impossible, im is derivational morpheme. Unfortunate, un is derivational morpheme. Inflectional morphemes. They are used to show if a word is plural or singular, if it is past tense or not, and if it is a comparative form of adjective or possessive form. For example, possessive, apostrophe s, Toms, Davids, Williams. S, plural, sons, books, pens, etc. S, verb, third person, like in the examples plays, runs, reads, etc. Ing, present participle, writing, playing, going. Ed, past tense, asked, loved, played, etc. Er, comparative, happier, merrier, uglier. So we can see that we have these inflection morphemes. Morphological description, or how to describe a sentence morphologically, that is to say, how to analyze a sentence morphologically. It refers to the idea of separating the elements or morphemes in a sentence. For example, the girl's wildness shocked the teachers. Morphological description of the sentence, the girl's wildness shocked the teachers. Look here, the functional morpheme, girl lexical morpheme, apostrophe s inflectional morpheme, wild lexical morpheme, ness derivational morpheme, shock lexical morpheme, ed inflectional morpheme, the functional morpheme, teachers teach lexical morpheme, er derivational morpheme, s inflectional morpheme. So in this way we can morphologically analyze any kind of sentence. You can analyze a sentence grammatically about the parts of a speech. You can analyze the sentence morphologically, and you can also analyze the sentence syntactically. Here we are talking about morphological aspect of describing or analyzing a sentence. Hope you understand the concept. Thank you and goodbye.